Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be talking about ivory. I have wanted to do this video for quite some time, but because it's such a controversial subject, I've kept putting it off. No jewelry collection will be complete without ivory in it, and also mankind has always been fascinated by ivory and seen it as an object of desire since biblical times. I would like to share a passage in the Bible with you because it's so beautifully written. When you go to 1 King verses 10 to 22, for the king had at sea the ships of Tarshish, which is the name of a village in present-day Lebanon, with the ships of Hiram. Hiram was the king of Tyre, also in Lebanon. Once every 3 years, the ships of Tarshish came, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. In the book of Revelations 18, it also states that the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because no one can buy their cargo anymore. Cargoes of gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and every article of ivory. So since biblical times, it's so obvious that ivory was considered a precious item because it's always been categorized in the same group as gold and silver and spices. The pharaohs of Egypt were also known to have hunted elephants in the 15th and 16th century along the Euphrates River, which was closer to Asia. And what really floored me was during the ancient Roman Empire. This really took me by surprise because you would think it's the Chinese. So notice that it says during the Roman Empire, their appetite for ivory was so great that they totally decimated the supply of ivory from Africa, which was then the largest supply of ivory in the world. So they totally obliterated it, and the rest of the world had to turn to India for the supply of ivory. And when I heard that Africa was the main supply of ivory, obviously I immediately Googled and tried to find out what sort of a jewelry the African queens would have worn, and I found these images which really intrigues me, because you can see in this video how every single culture reinterprets ivory in their own way and pays homage to the ivory in their own special way. So you can see what I would imagine the African queens would have worn as their accessories, because if you think about it, ivory comes from the largest mammal on land. And then in China, ivory was supposed to have existed during the Shang period from 1783 to 1123 BC. And since then, most of the ivory for the Chinese were used to carve figurines of deities or gods and goddesses or some kind of decorative element. When you talk about Asia, I also found out something new to educate myself. I didn't know that there was a very specialized form of craftsmanship in Japan, which is very specialized, called Netsuke, and the Japanese revere these master craftsmen who fashion ivory into such beautiful figurines. And then also in the Victorian times, you can see the British traders bringing in ivory into Britain and fashioning them into items such as cameos. Until now, I always assumed that the profile of the ladies in the cameos were made up of porcelain. I had no idea they were made out of ivory. So this is something that I've learned. You can see examples of Victorian times jewelry. You can also see some Victorian jewelry like necklaces and and earrings. And in this case, I was very surprised to find that they mentioned this particular necklace, which was hand carved, was made during the Victorian times, because it really resembles the first piece of ivory necklace that I owned. I remember buying it when I was a teenager. I specifically remember it as if it was yesterday, and the seller told me that it is real ivory and it's from Thailand because he was a Thai. So that is very intriguing for me. Whenever I do a video, as usual, I would do quite a bit of research, and I found this very interesting documentary. It was covered by a Westerner on the so-called insatiable appetite of ivory by the Asians, namely from China as well as from Japan. And in that documentary, to be fair to him, he did mention that he respects master craftsmen for their whole lifetime honing their craft and skill, and he respects that craftsmanship, the fine carvings, is totally understandable. But he went on to say that he doesn't understand if it's sort of like being mass produced for the upcoming affluent Chinese society, because it is sort of like a sign of wealth and affluence as this new group of Asians are coming up, especially from China, coming into new wealth, and they want to display just as they had seen their ancestors do. So this is what was very troubling for me, because if you think about it, ivory is also very much present in every piano. Isn't that right? That is exactly why Sir Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder wrote that song Ebony and Ivory. And if you think about it, the piano exists in almost every single household there is in this world, whether or not it is in the Asian hemisphere or the Western hemisphere. So I don't quite understand why the blame for the consumption of ivory is pushed entirely on the Asian community. I leave you with that thought-provoking statement. I think it's not fair to just push the blame on one single community, and I want to put a disclaimer out there. That doesn't mean that I condone the killing of elephants. Obviously, if it's from an elephant who has died naturally, then I think it's a waste to just let the ivory go. Even if he says he respects the older masters, but you have the newer group of people coming up, that old master is not going to be alive forever. You need to pass the crafts down to the younger generation, and these younger generation people are going to be the future master craftsmen. And then also I've got this one, which is a modern piece. This one really was meant to be for me, and the story behind it is I actually saw this about 4 years ago, and at that point in time I asked the seller how much it was, and he told me it was US dollars 1,000. And I was thinking, there's no way I'm gonna be spending that kind of money on this, but I really admired it because it's very streamlined. It's very sleek. I went online for so many years and I couldn't find something like this. I even went to my jewelry supplier, but whenever she has ivory, she has like almost half a dozen of the same design. So over the years I kept going back to his shop. Every single year I would go back and visit, and I would counter offer his price, and he would always reject me. And finally he agreed. Or I think maybe he got sick of seeing me as well. I also am filming from my living room today because at the back of me you can see my lacquer cabinet. If you can see the carvings on the cabinet is actually from ivory. So if you see the details of it, the close-up of the leaves, you can see the etchings on it, and also the pair of peacocks, you can see the carvings of their feathers on the body as well as the plumes, all individually carved and etched. It's really a magnificent piece of artwork. I can't imagine the number of hours the master craftsmen have owned and put lovingly into this cabinet. So I really feel so humbled, and that I am the custodian of this cabinet. So how you can tell that it's ivory from bone is the fact that when you look at it more closely, just like when you look at your piano keys, there will be some sort of like what looks like veins on it. So you will see some sort of lines on it that looks like veins, and that is how you can tell that this is ivory and tell it apart from bones. And also another thing I wanted to share with you is this, which is made up of ivory from a rhinoceros tusk instead of an elephant tusk. And when I went online, they said it doesn't matter what animal, as long as it's from the tusk, is considered ivory instead of bone. So she told me that the boss of the shop usually likes to go to villages in the rural areas of Borneo, and he got this from a medicine man. And I actually got it because I love the carving on the ivory itself, and I love the very fine carving on the wood of the bird as well. I don't know what sort of wood this bird is made up of. If anyone can tell me, I would appreciate it. I like to assume that it's ebony, and there is a hollow in the middle of the bone where you can supposedly put your medicine. The string is also original. I initially wanted to cut it off because I thought it looked not clean, but I'm glad I didn't get rid of it because it's true to form and it's in the original form. And the girl told me that whoever buys this will never fall sick. After I got this, believe it or not, I didn't really fall sick as often as I used to. I hope you enjoyed this video on ivory. I tried to cover ivory as being celebrated and as being fashioned in different parts of the world, with ivory even fashioned into fans. I still remember my mom having an ivory fan, and also into jewelry boxes, whether it's made up entirely of ivory or whether it is inlaid. You can even see the hilt of the daggers being made up of ivory from ancient times to modern times. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope that you have enjoyed this video on ivory. If you like this video, please like and share and comment down below. And I hope that you will consider joining my YouTube family. If you would like to know more about jade, I'm going to be linking some videos towards the end of this video. So I will see you then. This is Eileen's Lookbook signing off. Goodbye.